Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Silent Hill podcast. I promised I was going to follow up with a final video with regards to Silent Hill 2, where I give my own thoughts on the game as far as my experience on it and what was good, what was bad. Basically, my overall thoughts about the entire game now that I've been able to analyze pretty much everything associated with it from start to finish. So thank you again for those of you that are fans of this podcast. Be on the lookout soon for some Silent Hill 3 game analysis videos as well. And then I'm going to mix in and start the Half-Life one as well too. So be on the lookout for that too. So what are my final thoughts with Silent Hill 2? Well, it's definitely a stark difference from the first Silent Hill game. I guess if I could compare it to something, it's the fact that if the first Silent Hill game is like the first Alien movie, then this one, Silent Hill 2, is more like the third Alien movie. They're both different from one another, but they're obviously in the same universe, but they both have completely different feelings to them, like the way that the movies play out. Same here. The first game was a little bit more action oriented, and it focused more, I guess, on some of the weirder aspects within Silent Hill, especially with regards to the characters and some of the monsters. Here, this go around, it was made far more personalized. Clearly, with James being the main character, and then subsequently Mary being the I guess the carrot on the stick, the thing that he was always trying to track within the game itself. Everything that was tied to those two people made it far more personalized than anything before. I mean, even right down to the monsters themselves, with regards to how they looked, how they acted. Everything was tied to either them or, in some cases, some of the other characters too. So let's start off first with the good of the game. Again, great characters. James was definitely a tragic person of sorts. I mean, he was someone that you could absolutely root for when it came to his predicament. Here he was in a situation where his guilt essentially blocked out him and what he did to Mary that on that fateful evening. But in that case, that's why he was there in Silent Hill being punished thereafter. The whole basis of the game itself because of his actions. And then and it's tragic because you kind of feel for why he had to do what he had to do, but at the same time you realize that ultimately it was the worst thing possible. Mary, of course, even being more of a tragic person, because there in that case she is someone never explained what kind of illness she had, but ultimately, of course, it became the doom of her, and because of that, it led to James doing what he had to do, and then in turn, in essence, the story of Silent Hill 2, and then some of the other characters that were within the game as well, from Maria, who was basically just a made-up version of Mary, to and I think she still is, although some of the endings were kind of vague, and I'll talk about that here in a minute as far as it being bad. Eddie also being another character that was tragic, because when you think about it from the outside looking in, he never really killed anyone. Yet there he was, trapped within the world of Silent Hill, forever doomed to essentially live in that cycle. And then, of course, Angela, who has become, I guess, like a cult favorite of sorts, even so much so that she still graces a lot of the final covers, stuff associated with Silent Hill 2. There she is as well, another tragic figure, having to do what she had to do because of her circumstance, and then her too being doomed to the world of Silent Hill. Another great thing about the game itself, the storyline, the way it played out, it was absolutely something where it wasn't spoon fed. Instead, little by little, you started to pick up clues here and there with regards to to what's going on in the game and how they tied everything basically straight back to James and then ultimately to Mary. So it's not like the first game where there was a lot of sequences, a lot of cut scenes of sorts that dealt with, I guess, broad characterizations and storylines, stuff being presented to you right off the bat. No, in this case, you kind of have to figure it out. I was thinking that it's more like a thinking person's game where it's not 100% all action, and so it's stuff that you had to figure out on your own. And as you did so, that's when it started to make things far better as the game progressed. Of course, another great highlight of the game were the monsters themselves, including some of the most iconic ones yet within the Silent Hill world. I mean, some of the monsters introduced are still there in other games to this day. Of course, there's the idea of the nurses who started off in the game looking as iconic as they do now, and those nurses, obviously they were in the first game, but not like the ones that we saw in the second game. And when that happens, then clearly everyone liked it, liked their iconic look, and so it has continued to this day with regards to how they look like. And then of course there's Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head, who graced, I guess, just a few very notable, I guess, instances within the Silent Hill 2 game, and then him being so absolutely held, I guess, to great raves with regards to his appearance, that finally you have him appearing in practically every other medium of Silent Hill. So very nice ideas when it comes to the monsters, and then also the fact that so many of these monsters as well were 100% tied to each character and what they represented, what form of punishment they had. So we're talking about monsters that are each unique, highly sexualized too. That was another distinct notion with the Silent Hill 2 monsters as opposed to Silent Hill 1. These monsters were absolutely hyper-sexualized, of course tied 100% to James's frustration and how it manifested, and that idea ultimately tied to the rest of the games too, like how those monsters will look in Silent Hill 3, 4, and then some of the others are ultimately tied to the main character, and so this game started that notion as well. And then finally, another great thing about the game that I like, there's all those little teeny tiny touches that just made the game so unsettling. Like there's the idea that there's like rooms where you would walk in and you would hear like heavy breathing, and I swore I heard it. I know, looking at some of the Wikia pages on Silent Hill 2, it's confirmed. Those little touches just made things so creepy. There was another room where if you went in there, you would hear like a talking, kind of mumbling voice of some sort, like a whisper. And it's so creepy because again, you're not expecting that stuff. There was little taps that could be heard, I believe. There was little rattles as well. There's this one scene, everybody seems to be pointing to it. It had to do with walking to the bottom floor. I believe it was either the hotel or the hospital, and there was this insanely creepy scream that was like the mixture of a little baby and a pig of some sort, that was also just so you don't want to hear that thing again. And then also there was another one that stood out where when you were near, I think it was an outside area of some sort, a grassy area, you could hear like hooves, from horses running around. Well, of course, there's nothing there. There's all those little touches, those little nuances that made the game have that fear factor to them. Even, for example, I pointed out on my Facebook page, there was a scene where you're walking in the hotel and then you come across a door that looks like it has a face just staring at you. No reason for that thing being there other than the fact that it's just staring straight at you. So that's also made it creepy. And then the other little touches that I love too is the fact that there's so much hidden within Silent Hill 2 to walk around in and notice. Like there was a whole bunch of pictures that you could pick up on, a lot of memos, a lot of notes, stuff within almost each room that you could visualize and then inspect. All those little things added up to a whole world that you could realize and then walk in. That actually ties into, let's talk about some of the bad things within the game. Number one, and this is my biggest critique of the game, so many endless levels and endless rooms and endless hallways. Silent Hill 1 somehow found the right mixture. Like they were able to make sure that when you got to one place, you didn't have to spend too much time in there. You could move to another place, like another location, another hotel, whatever, and then the game progressed quite evenly that way. This one, no. Like when you got to a new apartment, you were stuck in that apartment, having to inspect that thing left and right, top to bottom, every single room. And I remember just rolling my eyes constantly at all the endless rooms that the character that was playing the game had to go through in order to make sure that things were found, because you did have to do that, otherwise you could not find the little nuances, like the little things that the game needed in order for you to progress certain points. So those endless hallways, endless rooms, endless levels, I think there was some things there where you could have cut them, where the game could have gotten rid of them, because it definitely slowed the pace almost down to a halt. I mean, when this character had to go room after room and then jump to another building and then room after room there and then walk across the street to another building and then room after room, it was way too much. Which led to another thing. There were not enough monsters, not enough bosses within the game as well. Obviously, this is a choice, a personal choice, it looks like, by the game developers. They, like I was saying earlier, this is like a thinking man game. It's not all action. I thought that was kind of a bad thing at some points, because there's so much that you can do when it comes to discovering things and inspecting rooms and so forth. Eventually, you want to get things a little exciting, and so you want to be able to take on some more monsters, especially some of the bosses, which there hardly were any, not like anything with regards to the first game. I mean, just look at my playlist, and you can see the comparison between the Silent Hill 1 videos of the monsters and the Silent Hill 2. There are far more monsters covered within the first Silent Hill game than the second one, so it shows a clear difference between the two. And then I suspect that there was probably some feedback about that too after this game was made, because when Silent Hill 3 was made, then it was changed and you're back to having more original monsters and boss battles. So I'm glad that was done. So this game, again, not enough monsters, not enough boss battles. This was something where even when you reach the actual bosses, they were relatively easy. Just watching them within the game, how the player dealt with them, too easy. So finally, another bad thing within the game too is all the vague endings, I guess. The ending that I saw was the one where James was trying to, I guess, bring back Mary to life as he was rowing the boat. I think it was to that small island that contains that church where they apparently help reawaken things. And I was reading some of the other endings too, and they all matched the same thing. They were pretty vague. Like there was no 100%, I guess you could call, like a definitive ending, like not even that like a happy ending, but a definitive ending. Instead, it seemed to be, and this seemed to be the birth of things when it came to this being like a recycling of sorts, where it's a circle of repeating itself. So that way, when the ending showcases what happens to the main character, in this case James, and he, like the one I was seeing, the ending where he helps I guess resuscitate his wife, then things are just going to basically repeat themselves, because the idea is that she's going to get sick again, and then he's going to have to kill her, and then he goes back to Silent Hill, experiences everything again, and then tries to resuscitate her again, and then it just continues. Same with the other ending. I think when he was leaving with was it Maria? And then Maria was almost, not 100%, but almost converted to Mary. There she was. They were leaving hand in hand, him and her, and then she started coughing. And so the idea there again was that things were just going to repeat themselves, and then it would be vague. So that's what I didn't like too much about the endings. Probably some people like that stuff, but not me necessarily. I like the idea of a more definitive ending rather than something being left for an obvious sequel. Which a lot of movies are doing now these days, which also annoys me. So that's another just bad thing that I found within the game itself. But overall, Silent Hill 2, it's a good game. Not quite as good, in my opinion, as the first Silent Hill. I know Silent Hill 2, it's a huge fan favorite of the franchise. So maybe it just wasn't for me, but it's not exactly my favorite yet. So I'm going to compare it soon with some of the other ones like Silent Hill 3, Silent Hill 4. And again, see how they rank overall, and I'll give my opinions on that later on too. So, what do you guys think? Those of you that are fans of Silent Hill 2, if you have any other thoughts, anything else that matches what I said, or anything that's stark contrast, please post those comments below. It'd be great to hear. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.